A millionaire took a homeless woman to his ex-fiancée's wedding, and what she did shocked everyone. Before we continue, let me know in the comments which city you're tuning in from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy. Nathan Caldwell, a ruthless tech mogul, twirled an invitation between his fingers. The thick, embossed cardstock bore the name of his ex-fiancée, Victoria Langley, in elegant silver script. The same woman who'd left him for a Wall Street heir without so much as a backward glance. And now, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, she'd invited him to her wedding. As if to say, "Look how happy I am, without you." "This has to be a jab," Nathan muttered, tossing the invitation onto his glass-topped desk. His business partner, Marcus Tate, picked up the envelope and let out a low whistle. "That's cold-blooded," Marcus said. "Are you going?" "And look like a pathetic loser." "No way," Nathan replied with a bitter laugh. "Then bring someone," Marcus suggested. "Make her wonder what she lost." It was a solid idea, but Nathan knew a hired model wouldn't cut it. He needed to shake things up, create a mystery, something that would leave Victoria obsessed with figuring it out. Later that evening, as he left his office in downtown Seattle, still mulling over the idea, he paused outside a small diner. That's when he saw her. She was sitting on the sidewalk, her back against a grimy storefront window. Her clothes were faded, her face smudged with dirt, but there was something striking about her. Her hair was tied back messily, but her eyes, those eyes, didn't beg. They were challenged. Acting on an impulse he couldn't explain, Nathan approached her, hands in his pockets, exuding his usual confidence. "Need some cash?" he asked. She looked up, not with gratitude but with a quiet disdain, as if weighing whether he was worth her time. Then she smirked, a sharp, almost mocking smile. "What is this? Some kind of social experiment? Depending on my answer, you'll toss me a 20, or pretend I don't exist." Nathan raised an eyebrow. No one spoke to him like that. "I want you to come with me to an event. I'll pay you enough to change your life." She let out a short, sarcastic laugh. "Change my life? How noble. Do you always use cheesy movie lines, or only when you're playing the guilty savior?" Her tone was so biting, he almost lost his cool, but he held his ground. "All you need to do is get cleaned up, smile, and stick by my side." She tilted her head, clearly amused. "Oh, I get it. You want me to be your arm candy, a human prop for one night." Nathan's jaw tightened. This woman was a puzzle, and he hated not being in control. "If you're not interested, I'll find someone else." She laughed louder now, unrestrained. "Someone else here? Because the line of candidates is so long, right?" Then she stood, brushing the dust off her worn jeans. She stepped closer, too close. "Fine," she said, as if doing him a favor. "But only because I'm curious." Nathan studied her, intrigued. "Curious?" Her eyes glinted. "I want to see how far a guy like you will go." Nathan frowned. This woman wasn't just different. She was unpredictable. And that unsettled him more than he cared to admit. The sleek black SUV glided through Seattle's rain-slicked streets, the city's neon lights reflecting off the wet pavement. Ava, now seated in the plush leather interior, stared out at the shimmering skyline. She seemed lost in her own world, not intimidated, not impressed, just alert. Nathan watched her silently. He expected questions. Where they were going, what she'd need to do, who she was supposed to be. But she stayed quiet. "You're not going to ask anything?" he said, his steady voice cutting through the hum of the engine. She turned slowly, her eyes narrowing as if his question bored her. "What's the fun in asking?" He arched a brow. "You don't even want to know where we're headed?" She gave a faint smile laced with irony. "I know it's not a church or a job interview, so I'm betting on a place where the cutlery has more uses than a Swiss Army knife." Nathan let out a low chuckle. "You're sharp." "Intuition?" "No, survival instinct," she replied. "Besides, guys like you only hire women like me for two things, to make a statement or to hide something empty." He studied her more closely. Beneath the rough exterior, Ava seemed to understand the world in a way few did. "It's a gala, a big one. All I need is for you to stay by my side." She didn't respond right away. She turned back to the window, then murmured, "I've been to events like that. A long time ago." Nathan's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "Nothing worth sharing on a car ride," she said, her smile turning faintly wistful. "But I'll tell you this. If you think I'm just here to be your decoration, you might have picked the wrong woman." For the first time, Nathan felt he wasn't the one calling the shots. "You're out for revenge," she said, as casually as if discussing the weather. Nathan's jaw clenched. How was she so perceptive? "And if I am?" he shot back, irritation creeping in. "Doesn't bother me," she said with a slight shrug, "as long as the payment's good." Her bluntness threw him off, but it also drew him in. How could someone who seemed to have nothing carry herself with such confidence? Minutes later, the SUV stopped outside a sleek modern townhouse in Capitol Hill, a low-key spot only Seattle's elite knew about. No signs, no flash, just exclusivity. Ava didn't ask questions. She stepped out and followed Nathan as if she already knew the drill. Inside, a poised woman in her 50s greeted them. "Mr. Caldwell," she said with a restrained smile, "the styling suite is ready." Ava was led to a luxurious room with soft lighting, full-length mirrors, and the faint scent of cedar and citrus. Unlike chaotic salons, this place was all calm precision. "All this for one woman?" Ava asked, settling into a plush chair as the stylist began assessing her face and hair. "All this for a purpose," Nathan corrected, offering no further explanation. "You can still back out," she said as the stylist snipped away at her tangled ends. "Back out of you? Maybe you were expecting someone easier to handle." He crossed his arms. "Nothing about you seems easy to handle." "Good," she replied, closing her eyes. The stylist worked in silence, as if sensing the transformation was more than skin deep. New clothes were brought in, measurements perfected, shoes aligned with precision. Nathan, waiting in another part of the house, received updates but kept his distance. This wasn't about control, it was about curiosity. Who was Ava? Nearly 2 hours later, a staff member summoned him. "She's ready." Nathan walked in and stopped short, his breath catching. Ava stood before a mirror, hands on her hips, studying her reflection. Her hair, now sleek and softly waved, framed her face perfectly. Subtle makeup accentuated her sharp, skeptical gaze. The navy dress, tailored to her frame, amplified her presence. Yet she didn't seem surprised or dazzled. She looked like she'd been here before. "You just gonna stare, or you got something to say?" she asked without turning. "You don't seem fazed," Nathan said slowly. She turned, one eyebrow raised. "Because I'm not. You've looked like this before?" She stepped closer, clutching a leather handbag a staff member had given her, and said firmly, "I've been this woman. Just off stage for a while." In the SUV heading to the gala, Nathan expected some reaction, a comment about the dress, the secret styling house, the luxury she'd stepped back into. But Ava stayed silent, gazing at Seattle's lights. "You're awfully quiet," he said, breaking the tension. She glanced at him, calm. Some people talk to prove themselves, others watch and wait for the right moment to act. Nathan studied her. For the first time in years, he wondered if he'd hired an ally, or someone who could match him. "Most people in your shoes would be floored by all this." She gave a short, ironic laugh. "Maybe I'm not most people." Nathan leaned back. She was right. Everything about her was unexpected. Pushing for answers felt pointless. And maybe, he thought, that was part of her allure. The SUV pulled up to the Seattle Art Museum, where the Caldwell Foundation was hosting a charity gala for urban restoration projects, the same event where Victoria, his ex-fiancée, was now the honorary host alongside her new fiancé. Outside, the museum's steps were lined with a crimson carpet and flanked by glowing art installations. Paparazzi jostled for shots as glamorous guests stepped out of limos in tailored suits and glittering gowns. Nathan exited first, adjusting his charcoal suit with ease, then offered his hand to Ava. She took it firmly, no hesitation. As she stepped out, a hush fell over the crowd at the top of the steps. Heads turned. Whispers started. "Who is she? Where'd she come from? I've never seen her at these things." Ava moved with grace, as if immune to the attention, or used to it. Her minimalist navy dress caught the light of the flashes, and her confidence made it clear she didn't need diamonds to shine. Nathan guided her up the steps to the main entrance, inwardly pleased. Everyone was watching, including Victoria. Keep your poise. Be polite, but don't draw extra attention, he murmured as a security guard waved them through. You brought me here to make a scene or blend in, Ava shot back, not looking at him. Nathan didn't answer. She smirked, like she already knew. Inside, the grand hall was a mix of modern art and towering floral displays, with a massive skylight overhead. Champagne floated by on silver trays, and a string quartet played softly in the background. It didn't take long for Nathan to spot Victoria. She wore a cream gown with silver embroidery and a vintage Langley family necklace. Beside her stood her fiancé, Gabriel Holt, with his usual smug expression. When Victoria's eyes met Nathan's, she faltered. Then her gaze shifted to Ava and froze. Nathan felt the exact moment Victoria's composure cracked. She tried to smile, but the uncertainty was obvious. Nathan led Ava toward them with calculated charm. "Victoria," he greeted, his voice low and sharp. She blinked, forcing a smile. "Nathan, I didn't think you'd come." "Of course I did. It's an important night, isn't it?" he replied, then turned to Ava. "And I brought someone worthy of the occasion." Victoria gave Ava a quick once-over. "Oh, we haven't been introduced." Before Nathan could speak, Ava extended her hand with effortless grace. "Ava Harper, pleasure to meet you." Her voice was steady, polite. Her posture, flawless. No arrogance, just the quiet confidence of someone who knew her place and didn't need to prove it. Victoria hesitated before shaking her hand. "Ava, you look familiar. Are you in the art world?" Ava smiled faintly, keeping the mystery alive. "Something like that." Nathan watched in silence. Victoria was rattled. Ava, cool as ever, like she was born for this. For the first time in a long time, Nathan felt the scales tipping in his favor. Ava had barely stepped into the main hall when the atmosphere shifted. Eyes followed her, curious, intrigued, some captivated, others wary. She wore no flashy jewelry, but she didn't need it. Her poise, her understated elegance, the way she commanded the room with a glance. It was magnetic, like a rare painting no one could quite price. Nathan observed her closely, not just with aesthetic appreciation, but with a nagging unease he couldn't shake. Ava didn't belong here, yet she moved like she owned the place. She spoke sparingly, smiled just enough, and her silences said more than the chatter around them. Women studied her from afar, trying to pin down her name, her background, the designer of her dress. Men watched, entranced. No answers came. Ava seemed to have appeared from nowhere with no past, no story, and that only fueled the fascination. Marcus Tate, Nathan's longtime friend, sidled up with 2 glasses of wine. "Nathan Caldwell," he said with a sly grin. "You vanish from the scene for months, then show up with the most talked-about woman in the room. Where were you hiding her?" Nathan took a glass, his eyes fixed on Ava, who was chatting calmly with a guest. "I'm not hiding anything." Marcus leaned closer, his gaze sharp. "So where'd you find this mystery goddess? Everyone's trying to figure her out. Never seen her at a single event. And that beauty, it's rare, unique. You chose well, my friend." Nathan gave a faint smile, but inwardly he was asking the same question. Where had Ava come from? Even he was hooked. He was about to reply, maybe with a vague half-truth, when Ava approached, holding her glass with ease and a glint of irony in her eyes. "Nathan," she said softly but firmly, "we need to dance, remember? Happy couples do that at galas." He smirked, catching her game. "Of course. Let's play the part." She handed her glass to a passing waiter and offered her hand. Nathan took it, leading her to the center of the floor where other couples swayed in rhythm. They started smoothly, movements in sync, glances and smiles calculated for appearances. A polished, perfect pair, almost believable. Then the music shifted. A slower melody filled the air, a soft piano weaving through the room. The lights dimmed. Couples drew closer. Without a word, Nathan closed the gap between them. He extended his hand. Ava paused for a split second, then accepted. Her hand rested on his shoulder, the other in his. Her touch was warm, sending a shiver through them both. Nathan caught her scent, light, crisp, and distinct, like her. Their bodies moved in sync, but something new emerged. Real closeness. For a few minutes, the world faded. They weren't pretending anymore. Ava's eyes flicked up to his, and Nathan, though unsure what it meant, knew something had shifted. When the song ended, she stepped back first, graceful as ever. A small smile played on her lips, and she returned to their table as if nothing had happened. Marcus appeared beside Nathan instantly. "Something's brewing there, huh?" he teased, sipping his drink. "You've outdone yourself, Nathan. I've never seen you so thrown. Your ex must be a wreck." Nathan turned slowly, ignoring the jab. He didn't want to admit it, not to Marcus, not to himself. "What do you do, Ava?" Marcus asked, settling at their table with genuine curiosity. Ava took another glass of champagne from a passing tray and swirled it slowly before answering. "I keep an eye on the stock market. The surge in AI startups has been fascinating." A brief silence fell. Marcus raised his brows, clearly caught off guard. Nathan hid a smile, amused by his friend's reaction. Marcus hadn't expected such a sharp response. "That's specific," Marcus said, trying to regain his footing. "I just follow the trends," Ava replied, sipping her drink. "It all comes down to who gets the right information first, doesn't it?" Marcus laughed, charmed by her wit. "Smart, stunning, and subtle. I see why you're with her, Nathan. She's a keeper." Before Nathan could respond, he took Ava's glass and handed it to a waiter. "Excuse us, Marcus. I need to borrow my date for a moment." He took Ava's wrist gently but firmly and led her to a glass-walled balcony off the main hall. The city's skyline sparkled below, and the cool night air was a sharp contrast to the gala's hum. "What are you doing?" Nathan asked, his voice low. "Having fun," Ava said simply, as if it were obvious. "You're drawing too much attention." "I thought that was the plan," she countered, smirking. "Make your ex squirm." "It's working, isn't it?" "You're good at this," he muttered, almost annoyed. "And you hate not being in control, don't you?" Nathan gave a short, dry laugh, then studied her silently for a moment. "You're not an ordinary woman." She crossed her arms, calm. "Took you long enough to notice." Before he could reply, the glass door slid open, and Victoria appeared. But before she could speak, Ava turned, pulled Nathan close, and kissed him. A deep, deliberate kiss that caught him off guard. Victoria froze, stunned. She cleared her throat loudly. Nathan and Ava parted slowly. "Sorry to interrupt," Victoria said, her tone icy. "You two seem to be enjoying the gala." "Especially the champagne," Ava said with a playful smile, brushing the corner of her lips with her finger. Victoria forced a smile, clearly rattled, and walked away. Nathan turned to Ava, still reeling. "What was that?" "A convincing act," she said. "I'm sure your revenge worked. Can I get double the payment for that?" She turned, poised and confident, and headed toward the restroom, saying, "I need to touch up my lipstick." Nathan stood there, motionless. The kiss lingered in his mind. There was something there, something beyond the act, something too real. A waiter passed. Nathan grabbed a champagne flute and downed it, the burn of the alcohol sharp in his throat. But what burned more wasn't the champagne. It was his chest, the pull toward that kiss. That damn kiss. Her calculated, theatrical move, but far too real. He wiped his lips with the back of his hand as if that could erase Ava's taste. It didn't. She was still there, mixed with champagne and defiance. "Nice performance," she'd said. But Nathan knew it was more, for him at least. He wasn't sure how long he stood there, staring into space, until a light touch on his shoulder snapped him out of it. "Nathan?" Marcus again, with that same curious grin. "You okay?" "Fine," Nathan said curtly, handing his empty glass to a waiter. Marcus raised a brow. "You look shaken." Before Nathan could reply, Ava returned, as flawless as before, but with a sharper edge in her gaze. "Ready to go?" she asked. "Already?" Nathan frowned. She leaned in, whispering so Marcus couldn't hear. "Mission accomplished. Your ex is rattled, the guests are buzzing, and your friend's dying to know more." She paused, adding with a smirk, "What are you waiting for? A fairy tale ending?" Nathan hesitated, then nodded. "All right, let's go." She turned without waiting, walking with the same elegance she'd entered with. In the SUV, Nathan drove in silence, his eyes on the road but his mind elsewhere. Ava watched the city lights pass, sensing his growing unease. "You're about to ask me something," she said, not looking at him. "Yeah," he admitted, "but I'm not sure you'll answer." She smiled, relaxed. "Depends on the question." Nathan gripped the wheel tightly as he made a turn. "Who are you, Ava?" She crossed her legs casually, as if at home. "The woman you hired to impress your ex-fiancé," she said lightly. "No." He glanced at her briefly. "You talk like someone who's been in this world before, someone who knows the game." Ava stayed quiet for a moment. When he pulled up to the boutique hotel he'd booked for her, part of the payment and part curiosity, she spoke calmly before stepping out. "I don't like riddles." "Then maybe I'm not the right person for you." She entered the hotel without looking back. Nathan sat there, gripping the wheel. Part of him wanted to chase her, to unravel her secrets. Another part just wanted that kiss again. And that confusion rattled him. In her room, Ava locked the door and leaned against it, her heart racing. She knew Nathan was suspicious. She walked to the mirror, studying herself. The perfect dress, the flawless makeup. Outwardly, she was transformed from the woman she'd been hours ago, but inside, she felt like she was reclaiming something buried. She knew this charade wouldn't last. Nathan would start piecing things together soon. He wasn't a patient man. He was used to controlling everything. But Ava was a puzzle he couldn't solve, and that threw him off. The next morning in his office, Nathan tried to focus on reports, but Ava's image kept intruding. Her poise at the gala, like she belonged. The kiss. Those eyes that answered nothing. Frustrated, he dialed an old contact. "I need you to look into someone," he said bluntly. A chuckle came from the other end. "Been a while, Caldwell. Who's the target?" "Ava. No last name." "That's a challenge. I want everything. Where she's from, who she was before she crossed my path, why she knows so much about my world. Give me 48 hours. Nathan hung up and leaned back in his leather chair. If Ava was playing a game, he'd see her hand soon. Later, he decided to find her. She was still at the hotel he'd booked. He went straight to her floor and knocked. She opened the door barefoot in an oversized white shirt from the hotel gift shop. The thin fabric hinted at her form under the dim hallway light. Nathan froze. He knew stepping inside would cross a line he might not come back from. Part of him feared it. Another part craved it. Ava said nothing, just stepped aside, leaving the door open. Nathan walked in, unsure if he was chasing truth or trouble. "I came to settle what I promised," he said, closing the door. "The payment. I keep my word." She visibly relaxed. "And you gave up digging into my life?" she asked, cutting to the point. "No," he admitted. "I've got someone on it already." Ava gave a short, humorless laugh. "Of course." She walked to the minibar. "Just water. Want some?" "Sure," he said. As she handed him the bottle, their fingers brushed. The brief contact sparked memories of the kiss, and Nathan couldn't help it. He stared, wordless. Ava felt his gaze and looked away, breaking the tension. "I need clothes. I got the payment, so no reason to stay here." Nathan, still processing, nodded. "There's a boutique nearby. I'll grab something. Be right back." She nodded, closing the door behind him. 15 minutes later, he returned with a shopping bag and knocked. "One sec," she called, her voice muffled by the sound of a shower. He chuckled. Too fast. Ava emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel that barely reached her thighs, hair dripping onto her shoulders. She opened the door, and Nathan froze again. She was magnetic, effortlessly, without caring. That's what undid him. "Here," he said, struggling to stay composed, handing her the bag. Their fingers touched again. This time, neither pulled away. Nathan dropped the bag, pulled her close, and kissed her with all the pent-up intensity he'd been holding back. She didn't resist. They stumbled to the couch, consumed by the moment. No words, no promises, just raw desire and tangled emotions crashing together. It was fierce, urgent, real. Then Nathan's phone buzzed on the table. He ignored it. The screen lit up with a familiar name. The investigator. He took a deep breath, still catching his breath, and grabbed the phone. "Talk." The voice on the other end was tense. "Nathan, you need to hear this in person. I've got details on Ava." Nathan didn't know what he wanted. What had just happened was too good to interrupt, but his need to know who she was burned inside him. He exhaled, typing a quick message. "All right, I'll meet you in 30 minutes. Ava, lying beside him, turned her head. "Something urgent?" "Yeah, but it can wait a bit," he said, pulling her into another kiss, reigniting the spark. Nathan wanted more. He wanted all of her, this woman who'd appeared from nowhere and turned his world upside down. When he finally checked the time, over an hour had passed since the message. "I've got to go," he said reluctantly. "Okay," she replied. "Give me your number. I'll call you later." She typed a number into his phone with a smile, handing it back. Minutes later, Nathan met the investigator at a quiet cafe. "What did you find?" he asked, eager. The investigator slid an envelope across the table. Her full name's Ava Harper, daughter of Richard Harper, a billionaire investor who lost everything to gambling and addiction. When she was 17, he vanished. Her mother died years earlier. Ava was sent to live with an abusive aunt who forced her to care for 5 kids. Nathan read the report, his stomach twisting. After 3 years, the aunt beat her and Ava ran. She's been on the street since, taking odd jobs, surviving. Nathan closed the envelope slowly, his eyes stinging with anger and empathy. "I knew it. She wasn't ordinary, that wasn't an act." He pulled out his phone to call her. "This number doesn't exist." His heart sank. He raced back to the hotel. He questioned the front desk, described her, pleaded. "She checked out an hour ago," the receptionist said. Nathan stood there, chest tight, mind reeling. He had to find her, not just out of curiosity. He needed her. Nathan lingered in the hotel lobby, his body tense, eyes fixed on the receptionist tapping away at her computer. His pulse raced with every passing second. "Please," he said, his voice low, almost desperate. "I was with her. She gave me the wrong number. She must have left her real one on the check-in form. Just tell me if it matches this." The receptionist glanced around, then at her screen. She nodded slightly. "She left a number, but it's not the one you showed me." Nathan fumbled with his phone, hands shaking as he dialed. It rang. Once, twice, 3 times. "Hello?" Ava's voice cut through the chaos in his mind, a mix of relief and disbelief washing over him. "Ava," he whispered, "is that you?" A brief pause, then, "Yeah. How'd you get my number?" "I'm busy, I can only talk for a second." "I need some time, Nathan. I'll call you when I can." He closed his eyes, soaking in her words. "I need to see you." "I do too, but give me a few days. I need to sort some things out." Nathan wanted to push, to find her now. But something in her voice, that same steady warmth, made him agree. And he waited. 2 weeks later. His phone rang on a grey Seattle morning as he sat by his apartment window, staring at the city without seeing it. The number wasn't saved, but he knew. It was her. "Nathan?" He froze for a moment, barely breathing. "Ava, I thought I was imagining this." She laughed softly, that laugh he'd held on to like a lifeline. "Not quite. But maybe you're about to wake up to something new. Can we meet today?" "Name the time and place." Nathan arrived early at the waterfront cafe they'd agreed on. He was nervous but hid it well, sitting by the window with his coat draped over the chair, hands gripping a cooling coffee. The past 2 weeks had dragged since her call. She'd asked for time and he'd given it. Now she was coming. When Ava walked in, the air shifted. She wore a simple white sweater, dark jeans and a light scarf. Her hair was in a neat bun, her face bare of makeup. Just Ava, no pretense, no mask. She approached slowly, her eyes calm but unreadable. "Hey," she said, pulling out the chair across from him. Nathan smiled, his heart pounding. "Good to see you," he murmured. Ava didn't reply right away. She scanned the room briefly, then turned to him, resolute. "I'm here because I need you to listen, not just with your ears, with your heart, and no interruptions." Nathan nodded, serious. She took a deep breath and began. "I grew up in a world that looked perfect. My dad, Richard Harper, was loaded. Big house, vacations, the works, but it was all a facade. He lost everything, gambling, bad investments, drugs. One day, when I was 17, he walked out. No note, no explanation." She paused, her eyes fixed on the table. "My mom was gone years before. I was alone. The house was foreclosed. All I had left was an aunt I barely knew. I moved in with her, thinking I'd find stability, but she treated me like garbage. I took care of her 5 kids, cleaned, cooked, slept on the floor, ate scraps. She told me daily I was a burden, that my life was over. Nathan's grip on his coffee mug tightened, his knuckles whitening. He'd read the report, but hearing it from her hit differently. One day after a fight, she hit me with a belt. I ran. No money, no ID. I slept on the streets, in bus stations, under bridges. I stole food, washed dishes for pennies. But when I could, I went to libraries. I read everything, finance, tech, markets. I studied because I refused to vanish. I wanted to rebuild. She stopped, the silence heavy between them. That went on for years, until you showed up outside that diner, with that smug look, thinking you were offering me something new. Money, glamour, one night in a fancy dress. You saw me as a prop for your revenge. Nathan swallowed hard, shame burning in his chest. I went along because I needed the cash. I thought I could handle it. But the truth, Nathan, is that stepping into that gala with you, it felt like I was betraying everything I'd been through, like I was wearing a mask to please the world that turned its back on me. She met his eyes. There was pain there, but no bitterness. When I left the hotel, I used your payment. Part of it got me a small apartment, clean, quiet, mine. The rest, I invested. In stocks, in new tech funds. I knew where to put it. I'd spent years studying, even when I was starving. Nathan looked down, feeling small yet awed. I also tracked down the kids, those 5 I raised like siblings. My aunt won't let them go, but I visit. Bring food, clothes, books, tell them stories. Show them there's a world beyond that house, that life isn't just pain. She paused again, longer this time. And I found my dad. He's in rehab, asked for forgiveness, said he didn't want to die without making things right. I'm not sure I can forgive him yet, but I go every week. I need to see him try. The silence felt sacred. Nathan watched her, eyes misty, hands trembling. The unshakable mogul was unraveling, not from pain, but from reverence. Ava had a strength he couldn't fathom, a power that wasn't bought or taught, only admired. I'm not here for your pity, she said firmly. I'm here so you know who I am. The real me. Not the woman in the gala dress, not the one sleeping on the streets, but the one who survived. Nathan stood slowly, walked to her side of the table and knelt beside her, taking her hand. I don't pity you, Ava. I feel something I can't name. It's bigger than admiration, bigger than respect. I feel like you're everything I'm not, and everything I want near me every single day. She closed her eyes, swallowing the emotion threatening to spill. You sure? She whispered. Absolutely. Give me a chance to love you, honestly, slowly, to build something real with you, one step at a time. No running. She nodded, a small smile breaking through. They embraced, a slow, healing embrace that stitched together 2 broken halves. Days later, Nathan introduced her to his friends as his girlfriend. There were no gasps, no rude questions. They saw in his eyes what words couldn't convey. Months later, strolling along Puget Sound, Marcus recalled that day in the office. Remember, you were pissed about Victoria's invitation. I told you to bring someone to show you'd moved on. Nathan laughed, glancing at Ava, who was ahead snapping photos of the water. And look at that, because of my ex, I found the love of my life. Marcus chuckled, shaking his head. Life's wild. And Nathan knew it was. What started as a revenge plot became a rebirth. Now all he wanted was to live beside her, day by day, with truth, with purpose, with love. What did you think of Ava and Nathan's story? Drop your rating from 0 to 10 in the comments. Subscribe and hit the bell for more stories, and don't miss the next one. Click now. Thanks, and see you in the next tale.